Let's begin today's Vanguard news with now's Varga cards and EZBT-01 that were seemingly made to job in last week's episode. Blaze Zembar Dragon, when ridden over by Boulder Axe Dragon, makes you call itself to rear guard, then soul charge 1 card. And while on rear guard during your turn, it gets 2k power if you have a grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard. This is just the same as Patrol of Gust's Vintester. Either Bushiroad Road is starting to make even the right lines into cycle cards, or they are making them very mediocre, so players will replace them with better versions in future supports. Boulder Axe Dragon, when ridden over by a grade 3 Varga card, makes you call itself to rear guard. And while on rear guard, it gets 5k power when it attacks a Vanguard, while you have a grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard. But it gets retired at the end of that battle, and you draw a card. We went from a very mid grade 1 to a really good grade 2 ride line. This is basically a better Brachio Force without the retire effect or Varga getting himself an inlet pulse dragon. Fated one of unparalleled Varga Dragres once per turn while on Vanguard, lets you pay 1 counter blast when it attacks a Vanguard to retire both players' front row rear guards, then it gets 10k power until the end of turn. Then stand itself at the end of that battle, but it loses 2 drive checks. And while on Vanguard, you can pay 1 counter blast at the end of the battle it attacked a grade 3 or higher unit while you're at 4 or more damage, and it attacked 2 or more times this turn to stand itself, and gets 2 drive checks. Overlord mains are watering at the mouth at how this card can perform up to 3 attacks. 4 if you manage to check the nation's over trigger. And as I recall, didn't Buddy Fight have a similar overturn skill? But expect players to shout limit break instead when they use this divine skill. Obduracy Glaive Dragon, while on the front row rear guard during your turn, cannot be retired by card effects if you do not have another front row rear guard with the same name as itself, and it gets 10k power. And while on rear guard, it gets the boost ability if you have a grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard. Did Bushiroad just give Dragon Empire a generic 23k unit that cannot be retired by card effects? Gandiva might just have a new tech. Impale Horn Dragon, while on rear guard, gets 5k power during the battle it boosted while you have a grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard. And while on rear guard, it gets 2k power when it boosts a grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard, then you can pay 1 soul blast and retiring itself to draw a card. I was about to make a cycle card joke how this card is similar to Reziel's Aerial Sage, but then I noticed it doesn't countercharge the 1 resource that Varga actually needs. Is this going to be a repeat of Nirvana in which it doesn't get a countercharger until later in the deck's life cycle? Dragres Ishura, while on rear guard, lets you pay 2 energy blast when she attacks to get 5k power, then give one of your rear guards with a different name than her an auto ability that lets you add it back to your hand when it gets retired on rear guard. And when she's retired on rear guard by your grade 3 or higher Varga Vanguard's ability, you can pay 1 counter blast if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or higher to call herself to rear guard and get 10k power. So she becomes Varga's potential 6th attacker. And if I'm reading this right, you can also use her in Tamura as well, by using her first ability on rear guards that you would call over with Tamura's skill, thus becoming the nation's pseudo bounce effect like a lyrical Monasteria unit. Finally, here's Varga Dragres' secret rare, in which the red border circuit board design doesn't blend well with the card's feudal look, and that sword popping out of the frame just looks forced at this point. And that concludes this Vanguard news without the bullshit. Special thanks to my Patreon members that continues to support me even after I got my YouTube partnership back. Be sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments if players are suddenly selling off their Overlord decks with big price drops.